This program is brought to you by StudioCast Pros, taking your web branding strategies to a new level by creating world-class online programs proven to engage audiences and enhance profits.
Welcome to the Break It Down Brown Show. I'm your host, Marr Brown. This is a show where we take everyday life issues, challenges, and questions and break them down. The point of the show is not to change your opinion about a particular subject, rather to change your perspective about it. Today we're going to break down an issue that affects each one of us at some level in our personal or professional lives. How to deal with toxic people. Those are the people we encounter on a daily basis that may not be conducive to our success and our happiness. Our guest today is going to help us learn how to identify and effectively deal with the toxic people in our lives. It's time to break it down. Welcome back to the Break It Down Brown Show. My guest today is Christy Parker. Christy is an author, lecturer, and ethics coach. She is the founder of Emotional Ethics, which is a company that focuses on positive change management. In addition, Christy has a Master of Science degree in organizational leadership and 2 other degrees in behavioral studies and English literature. Christy, welcome to the show.
Hello.
I've really been looking forward to having you on the show because you're going to talk about a subject that we all deal with in our personal lives and our professional lives, which is how to deal with toxic people. And you've done a number of studies and research in terms of how to spot toxic people and how to deal with them. But I want to ask you first, what made you want to even study this idea or this topic of toxic people?
Well, I grew up in a pretty safe environment, away from a lot of toxic people who were manipulative and abusive emotionally. And then I kind of moved into this area where there seemed to be a higher frequency of them. And I had to work with them, and I didn't quite know what was going on.
Okay.
I felt like I was being manipulated. I felt like I couldn't really be myself. I couldn't speak up anymore. Before I felt like I could speak up in group settings, and all of a sudden I couldn't. I felt depressed. I felt like there was something I couldn't really pinpoint either. I couldn't really figure out what was going on, and I wanted to research it. So I went into psychology, but really into behavioral studies to try and figure out what I was seeing in front of me, the tactics that people were pulling, or twisting my words or whatever that I was not aware of because I didn't grow up in that setting. I didn't really understand what was happening, and I wanted to find out why.
Let me ask you this. What was the first moment or incident or situation that really sort of made you take pause and go, this is different?
It was a really negative feeling that I really felt inside, but everybody else was, following this person that was very charismatic and domineering, really, would do a good job and get things done, but how were they getting that done was the question. And everybody was doing what this person wanted, but behind the scenes, I was getting feedback from people that was negative, how they felt around this person, how they, some people would stop working with the person because they couldn't handle the abuse and the aggressive behavior.
Wow. Well, let's start from a 30,000-foot perspective, and we're going to break it down. In the first half of the show, we're going to work through your process, basically in terms of how do you spot toxic people and how do you deal with them. On the second half of the show, I want to address all of our people out there that are in business or business owners or professionals and companies that are dealing with different personalities that may be just difficult to deal with or maybe toxic. And I want you to break down the difference for us.
Okay.
But going back to your background and your study of toxic people, starting with this one individual that first gave you pause, in your research, what were some of the things that you learned initially about toxic people?
That they have tools that they are used to using and getting what they want. And they will place themselves in environments that give them that. They will surround themselves with people who give them what they want for being a bully or abusive.
Okay. And in terms of sort of taking that one step further, I understand based on the lectures that you do, which are really good, that there are 15, I know there's probably more, but I know that I heard the number 15 different types of toxic people. I know we don't have time to go through all 15 of them, but give us maybe the top 3 or top 5 that we can identify?
The top one that people miss is that charismatic person who comes in and charms everybody and tells jokes and really is the center of attention. And they're really funny and charming, and they're, but when you start trying to work in a group with them, they start shutting down the communication. They start shutting down other people's ideas.
Okay.
They'll make fun of people. They will redirect the conversation that you're having with somebody toward them.
Okay. And what about, give me a couple more.
Sadistic personality.
Okay.
Of all the psychopathology out there, sadism, from what I've read, is a learned trait. It's not something that's something wrong with the mind, or this person, has a personality trait or something that's sadistic. It's something that's handed down through families. They've learned how to one-upmanship through making other people look bad, and they actually enjoy it.
Okay. And interesting. So we have the person that is charming. I think probably have to be a little bit careful because somebody might say, "Well, I know charming people."
Right. That doesn't mean that they're toxic. Yeah.
Okay,
Let's clarify
right.
that. That doesn't mean that they're necessarily toxic.
Okay.
It's a clue, and especially if you're picking up on a feeling that doesn't feel right, or you're picking up on some tone where they're talking down to people.
Okay.
It's some nonverbal behavior.
Okay. So what I think I hear you saying is that the underlying thing to think about when you're dealing with somebody who may or may not be toxic is your intuition.
Yes.
And your sense of your feeling that you get from that person. Is that accurate?
Yes.
Okay. So how do you, talk to people and teach people how to trust that intuition? Because sometimes we kind of, go off of what we see and not what we feel sometimes.
Right. People have been trained, maybe in a family setting or through experience, to not trust their intuition because somebody lied to them, somebody convinced them that that wasn't true, what they felt, and it's not something visual. So how can you prove it?
Right.
And a lot of times toxic people are really good at lying.
Okay.
And twisting your words or using your one moment of bad behavior against you to condone their bad behavior that they do more often. It's all about trickery and trying to win for them.
Okay. So how do you, when you work with people through one-on-one or through your seminars or through your webinars, how do you get people comfortable with trusting that intuition?
I talk to them and validate them.
Okay.
Just listen to them and validate what they have to say. When you validate people, it gives them the strength inside to start believing themselves. It might take time. They might beat themselves up every once in a while for not trusting their intuition or their perception. But if they keep coming back to me and talking to me about what they've been through, or supportive people in general.
Right.
And, feeling type personalities are the ones that mostly pick up on that. And they need to surround themselves with feeling type personalities who also pick up on it and validate that.
Okay.
Often we may get feeling types get around thinking personalities who only, think, don't really feel, and they observe perception with perception, thinking people do. But they don't pick up on the feeling part. They might not even understand that they're doing it themselves, that they are actually having a negative intention.
Right.
And you're picking up on it before they even know about it.
Christy, it seems like what you're suggesting is learning about your different personality style. There's thinkers, there's feelers, and I know I've been through several different personality profile, training, Myers-Briggs, Insights, and a whole bunch of other ones. And I'm a big proponent of them. Would you recommend that for people?
Yeah, I think people should actually go out there and do different tests through personality, books or online, and figure out who you are. But because there's no, sometimes people can confuse themselves who they are because they've been told who they are.
Okay.
and by people who are untrustworthy.
Right.
So they need to actually go read about that personality and see if it really fits. So I would suggest taking the test, but also reading about it.
Okay.
And the ones maybe next to it, because there's different personalities that are, close, and you don't quite know which one it is. It might take you some time. If you've been emotionally abused throughout your life and, controlled into being something other than who you are, it will take time for you to figure out who you are.
That makes a lot of sense. And it's funny, I had Dr. Janet Woods was on the show recently, and she is a professionally trained face reader. And
Yes.
she breaks down a person's face based on, thinking, feeling, and intuition, or being practical. And so that's another tool that can be used to really help to understand yourself, because so many times I think people focus on the other person, trying to get to know the other person or learn the other person, and we don't spend as much time understanding our own personalities, our own blind spots, and how we come across to people. So would you agree with that?
Yes,
Okay.
we need to, some people don't intuit. They don't really introspect about themselves and think about, well, what was it that I did that maybe set them off? Or
Right,
what was it
right,
that I
right.
did that made that happen? Some people are only thinking about what the other person did.
Interesting. And I always tell people, whenever there's an issue, the first thing to do is to look in the mirror, to see, what have I done to contribute to this situation? And it's not always,
That's not always the case.
Not always the case, but it's important at least to have that
Yes.
introspection sometimes. So now, what I want to talk about now is how do we begin to deal with some of these toxic people? We've defined a couple of them, and maybe there's a couple more you can address as we look at how do you teach people how to deal with them? Because it's one thing to feel that somebody's being toxic or to know it for a fact, but then it's another step in terms of dealing with it. So
Right.
kind of take us through that process.
Well, they're usually taking you through a maze
Okay.
where you're confused. It's
Okay.
a fog.
Okay.
They will twist your words against you. They will use your one moment of being imperfect to condone their, you're being a hypocrite, you do it too, where, basically they're trying to say that it's okay that what they're doing 90% of the time is
Right.
okay,
Okay.
because
Okay.
of your one time. So you kind of like back off and think, okay, maybe I shouldn't be asking them to do that. No, you need to make it very clear to them that you also are going to try not to do that
Right.
at
Right.
all.
Okay.
You also want to be able to get them to stop talking down to you.
Okay. Okay.
You need to spot that when somebody's talking down to you, and the tone that they're using,
Okay.
and
Okay.
address that instead
Okay.
of the argument. Stop trying to win or defend yourself, and just address the way they're treating you.
Okay. Yeah, I shared the story with you when I was in college, and I had I was student body president, and you get an ego sometimes in life, and I went to college because I wanted a certain dorm room that was on a corner. And I thought because I was student body president, I should get this corner dorm room. And I walked into the dean's office huffing and puffing and upset because I got a letter saying I didn't get the room I wanted. And I walked in there ready for a fight. And I'm arguing and I'm debating. And the whole time he's just sitting there listening, smiling. And he goes, "Jamar, how are you doing today?" And I'm like, "I'm doing terrible." And he said, "Oh, really? Well, tell me why." And just was that calm. And after a while, I calmed down, and we had an incredible discussion, and I ended up getting a different room, and I was happy about it. But to your point, sometimes it's taking
You were using the tools that had worked for you before in
right,
some way.
Right, exactly.
Right? So he's trying to teach you a different way.
Exactly. This is what you're doing.
So he actually, what I kind of joke around during my lecture, and to get people to understand how you want to come across. You don't want to come, and I'll give this, I kind of talk about Star Wars and how you don't want to act like Princess Leia, who can be kind of snotty.
Right.
And then you've got Luke who can whine and complain. And then you've got Han Solo who can be kind of a jerk. You want to be like Obi-Wan, calm and centered, and just kind of calmly bring people to a calm place to discuss what's going on. And that's what you want to do. And that's what he did with you.
Absolutely.
He was Obi-Wan.
Yeah, he was Obi-Wan. And who was I? Probably Princess Leia at that point. So we're about to go to break, but before we go to break, I want to spend a couple minutes and talk about the effects of toxic people.
Okay.
Because I think they might be more significant and severe than people really think about. And I read a lot of your background in terms of health effects and mental effects and things like that can be associated with dealing with people that are toxic, that people may not make the association. So talk to us about the effects that toxic people have on a person.
Well, they actually stimulate negative hormones in your body. I'm sorry, I just forgot the word. They're hormones that come into your body and they start breaking it down and start causing illness.
Okay.
And that means that if you're sick with cancer or you're sick with some type of immune problem, you're going to be sicker and you're not going to heal if you're around a consistently toxic environment or toxic person. Research has shown that you can actually pass away from the debilitating hormones that can start breaking down your body and cause you to not have an immune system.
Interesting. And it seems like a big part of that is stress.
Yes.
And how stress affects, back pain can be linked to stress, and headaches and other sort of conditions that make you not quite right. Would you include that as part of your?
Yeah, an inability to heal and to calm down. You might be ruminating on the toxic behavior, which, so even when they're out of the room, they're still there. They're in your head. They're in your heart. You're constantly ruminating over what happened and maybe even just trying to figure it out. But I actually tell people to do that for a little bit every day, but don't let it consume you. Go get distracted by other things when you're trying to figure out what to do with a toxic person so that you're healing. Right,
excellent. So on that note, now that we've addressed the significance of the effect that toxic people have on a person's psyche and mental ability and even physical health, we're going to take a break and we're going to come back and have you say, you can't say everything because people need to watch your webinar, but I'm going to get as much as I can.
Okay.
Hopefully that's not a toxic personality, but I'm going to get as much as I can while we have time on the set today, to learn as much as we can and to help our audience really understand that the effects of dealing with a toxic person are significant. And we need to understand how to address that, and Chrissy Parker is going to help us do that. And we're also going to really dive into the effects of toxic people in terms of business for managers and in your professional world. So if you're a professional, business owner, manager, or employee, you definitely want to stay tuned when we come back after the break, and we're going to hear a word from our sponsor. Thank you very much.
StudioCast Pros, taking your web branding strategies to a new level by creating world-class online programs proven to engage audiences and enhance profits.
Welcome back to the Break It Down Brown Show. We're having a great discussion with Chrissy Parker, who is the creator of a great new webinar entitled How to Spot and Deal with Toxic People, and we're talking about how to do that right now on the show. So Chrissy, welcome back. Before the break, we were talking about the effects that toxic people have on others in terms of their mental stability, their physical health and well-being, just their general sense of how they feel about themselves. And that was really good. Now I want to address how toxic people affect the business world. You're a business owner, I'm a business owner. I spent a number of years in corporate America, so I've seen everything, the good, the bad, and the ugly. And so I'm sure I can relate to some of the things you're going to talk about. So let's talk about toxic people in a professional environment. How do you spot them, and what are the signs of whether or not somebody is toxic?
One-upmanship.
Okay.
If somebody has a desire to make you look bad in order to make them look good, that's a toxic person.
Okay. And I know that you work a lot with managers. So let's look at managers and a sales team. And there's different personalities. There's different styles of management as well as of working. So if you were working with a manager, how would you address the issue of identifying toxicity within the organization?
So I've been in groups and I've watched toxic behavior take over a group.
Okay.
And I've also watched as somebody becomes very aware of what's going on after several meetings of not catching on.
Okay.
And then you kind of see the look in their eye, like, okay, wait a minute, something's going on here. And I've had them reach out to me because they know that I know about behavior.
Right.
And they're like, okay, so what was that all about? And really they start paying attention to how somebody just keeps drawing all the attention to them.
Okay.
And they keep shutting down conversations between other people during the meeting that could help.
Okay.
They start projecting actually their need for attention onto the other people, and they see them as a threat. So they start shutting down communication and just become this vacuum of attention.
Okay.
And so nothing's really getting done, or it's all about them, or they'll actually, when somebody else comes up with a good idea, they'll try to change the subject or get them to come back to their idea, even though the other idea might be a better idea.
And having managed sales teams of 9 people to of 130 people, I've seen all kinds of behavior, and it seems like there's 2 sides of it. There's a side of the manager, who may or may not exhibit toxic behavior,
right?
And then there's the team, who may have 1 or 2 people that exhibit toxic behavior, and it can be a slippery slope sometimes when you're dealing with politics and the whole 9. So let's just put the politics issue aside for a second, and just look at when you're on that team, and let's look at 2 sides. The manager that sees toxic behavior, the person that's always wanting to get attention, that always seems to, if you say the sky is blue, they say the sky is yellow, and everyone sees it's blue, but this person says it's yellow. Oppositional. How do you get the team to rally around the manager who may want to sort of thwart that behavior? Because I can imagine it can be very difficult. So how do you work with the team and the manager in that situation?
You might need to take that person to the side and kind of help them to understand how the team works. Sometimes that can work. It might take consistent reminding. Right. You also need to help them to understand that somebody else's input is important, that they can build on maybe those other people's ideas instead of trying to always make it about their idea. So you're training a person. You might need to go into the other people and help them feel validated in what they see. Let's say somebody comes to you as a manager and says, "Oh, this person is driving me nuts." And a manager who just blows that off and doesn't validate the negative behavior that this person is feeling or receiving, you're going to create this person who shuts down and stops working or is continually trying to heal, emotionally, and they're not getting their work done because they're trying to heal. You want to be able to validate them, yet also give them hope. Here's some tools. How can we help fix this problem?
And I know we were talking off camera. You were saying that a big part of it is really addressing the issue with the team from a management perspective, but also, as you said, painting a picture of hope. What can be done? Because you said something very interesting off camera, and that is people really respond to kind of what they feel and what they see more than what the manager may say. So the manager may say, we're going to deal with it, but if he or she doesn't do anything about it and the team doesn't feel to do something about it, then what happens is that, and explain this even further, the rest of the team then can become somewhat toxic.
Yes.
So,
well, Enron's a really good example of that. They had this system called rank and yank. So you had to do better than somebody else or show them up, or else you were going to get yanked from the team.
I see.
So it just created this toxic environment where people were going home having emotional breakdowns. So as much as Enron was a financial disaster, it was an emotional disaster as well. You want to be able to, with a manager that's toxic, you might need to talk to somebody above them and kind of explain what's going on. You might need to change jobs if you can't work with this person. If you're a manager and you have a toxic person in your group, you might need to remove them. There are steps to take to help this person understand how to respect other people. Even like, I took one person who was having trouble with this, and they kept, dogging this other person's ideas and just calling them stupid. And behind their back, even if that person missed a meeting, openly just going, yeah, that idea was, And you have to go, you know what? They're part of the team, and I respect them. And try to help people to respect each other on the team right then, and just knock it down if it comes up. You know what? Hey, let's cool it. If it gets really severe.
And that's a good point to break it down further, because I was excited to talk to you because of my experience in working with teams, and one of the things that we had, one of the things that I managed was a zero tolerance policy for gossip, negativity, and drama. We had a zero tolerance policy, and whenever it was, and the thing about it was, I didn't want to be the manager sort of coming down from the mountaintop telling people we have a zero tolerance policy. I wanted to build a team who it was in their psyche to have a zero tolerance policy, because it went from maybe having 1 or 2 people that were the outliers, but became the norm because they had such an effect on everybody else. Everyone else sort of wilted in front of them. But after a while, when some transitions happen, or people's mindsets change, or people found other opportunities, let's just say, the team got to the point where there was such a wall of, this is how we operate, this is who we are, this is our culture, that people felt uncomfortable being toxic or being less than collaborative in that environment. So what you're saying is extremely powerful for a manager.
So you created a group that came in and maybe pushed and pulled against each other a little bit in the beginning to learn each other's boundaries. And you allowed people to set boundaries maybe with other people.
Right.
And you allowed people to kind of, to push on other people's boundaries that maybe been too rigid.
Right.
And so then you create this team where everybody understands the rules of how everybody wants to be treated. And that's healthy. And also, instead of being a top-down leadership, you created this system where you were a hub of information and giving resources, giving pep talks, validating maybe people, but also having them give you information
Right.
that maybe you didn't know, so that the whole group could learn and grow together.
Absolutely. That's exactly what you're saying.
Yeah.
So now, here's something that's interesting from a management perspective. And like I said, I've been in corporate America, or had been in corporate America for years. And so I saw it all, from being an intern at a company to a VP of sales. So I saw everything that you can think of in a corporate environment. But one of the things that you mentioned to me that I really want you to break down today is the manager. Because oftentimes, managers are the perception is we need to be strong leaders, and we need to be cutthroat and drivers and sort of non-emotional. And I think what you're saying is, well, maybe a manager should look at that differently because they may be missing the boat. But how do you get somebody comfortable even to be receptive to that that discussion?
You mean the manager?
The manager, yes.
To be receptive to being not perfect?
Yes.
Yes.
There you go. Right.
They need to come to their group and tell them, I don't know everything, and you're a specialist in your field, or a specialist in your area, and you're going to learn things that I don't know. I need you to bring that back to the group. And I need you to teach us and inform us of what you know. And I also need you to be open to learn from everybody else in this group and from me. So you're helping them to understand that it's a team. Even you are part of the team.
So now the fear is, and I'm sort of putting myself in the position of a manager, the fear is, well, if I let people know that I'm vulnerable, that I'm not perfect, somebody might take advantage of that.
I think that's a misconception. If you have somebody who takes advantage of it, you need to remove them from the team.
They're a toxic person, right?
Yes.
There you Okay.
You need to warn them. You need in private. Just, you know what, we're a team. We need to work together. Actually, you want to ask them questions. Why do you think that other people on the team would want to work with you for treating them that way?
Interesting.
And tell them it's not just about these wins. You're trying to win. It's about long term. This organization needs to work long term, even after we're gone.
Right.
And so we want to create this team that works together, even when we're gone.
Right. Exactly. Now, let's talk about your company for a second, because I looked at your motto and your mission statement, emotional ethics as a company. And one of the mottos I read was, don't let toxic people hijack your emotions, business, or life. Learn to discern so you aren't easily fooled or manipulated. Why that company name, and why is that the motto?
Because a lot of people don't think they have the right to judge. They've been told they don't have the right to discern, especially people-pleasing personalities.
Okay.
Don't judge. And I'm not actually asking people to judge, to condemn this person.
Right.
And I want you to be able to discern their negative behavior, so that you're not letting it not let you be yourself.
Got it.
You need to be able to be allowed to be yourself and allow other people to be themselves, as long as it doesn't encroach so much that it's taking people's free will away.
I think what you just said is so valuable, and I just feel there's someone out there that heard that needed to hear that, and that is to be comfortable with yourself. Because when we're in business, oftentimes we're sort of taught to present a certain way, or to say certain things, or to laugh at certain jokes. And sometimes it's uncomfortable being comfortable with yourself. But it's so important, because that's the essence of who you are. And so from a business standpoint, give us a couple of tips to help somebody be comfortable with who they are.
Okay, let's say you made a mistake in a meeting or whatever, and somebody mocks you or makes fun of you or belittles you in some way. You have to actually, within yourself, realize that they're the ones that look bad. You have to twist that around. I'm not the one who looks bad. This person looks bad for making me look bad and not being patient with me.
Wow, okay. So as we're going to wrap up in a little bit, but I do want to dive into your webinar, How to Spot and Deal with Toxic People. What made you want to put together the webinar, and if somebody watches it or listens to it, what are they going to learn from it?
They're going to learn, first of all, what toxic behavior looks like. They might have missed certain cues, and so I give people those cues.
Okay.
And then I tell people how to deal with it without arguing or trying to defend themselves, addressing the tone or maybe the way people are treating them. I then also help them to understand how to be patient with themselves as they incorporate new behavior. And also maybe be patient with the other person that they're trying to ask to be a better person. It's change management takes time. It takes about 3 months to just change one habit.
Really, 3 months?
Yes. So to make it really stick.
Wow. Can I get some tidbits about the process, or is that part of the webinar?
It is part of the webinar. I wish I could give it all. I really do. I want people to understand.
Right. Okay.
But hopefully they understand that I can give that to them.
Right. If they watch the webinar, which makes perfect sense.
Yes.
So we're about to close. Do you have any final thoughts for our audience about how to spot and deal with toxic people, how to be comfortable with themselves, how to address certain people, or anything that you feel would be a key takeaway for our audience?
I want people to not only be okay with who they are, I want them to be able to see the difference in others and appreciate those differences and work as a team with other people and stop the one-upmanship. Stop trying to make other people less than you so that you can be number one.
Interesting. Well, I think what I want to close with is, I remember I was speaking to one of my mentors about getting promoted. And I said, how do you get promoted? Because I was an ambitious young man, I guess you could say. And he sat down and he said, Jamar, there's 2 ways to get promoted. I said, really? And I leaned in because I was very curious. He said, you can either claw your way to the top, or you can be pulled or pushed to the top. And then he explained is that based on how you treat people, how you deal with people. And to me, that is coming back full circle based on our conversation about how to deal with toxic people, how to do well and understanding how to work with other people so that you don't have to scratch and claw your way and have the one-upmanship.
Right. You might be winning the battle but losing the war. And what's the war? It's that long-term relationship with people where they trust you that you're not going to humiliate them or make other people look bad or be a problem or difficult to work with later on down the road.
Right, absolutely. Christy, I want to thank you very much. This was a phenomenal discussion, and I learned a lot personally, and I know our viewers really got a lot out of our discussion, and because we're all dealing with toxic people, and I think we've either helped people understand how to, some tools in terms of how to deal with toxic people that we know are toxic, and then some tools in terms of how to discern toxic behavior. And I know that to get the full program, they need to watch your webinar, which I will give them your contact information. But thank you very much. I really appreciate your time.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right.
Yeah. If you would like to book Chrissy Parker to speak at your next event, please call 951-206-8824 or email cparker@emotionalethics.com. Also, to view Chrissy's webinar on how to deal with toxic people, please visit emotionalethics.com. And finally, if you would like to be a sponsor of the Break It Down Brown Show, watch more Break It Down Brown shows, or even to suggest topics for me to break down, please visit jamarbrown.com or call 949-371-9077. And to learn more about having me as a keynote speaker, personal coach, or business consultant for your organization, please visit jamarbrown.com or call 949-371-9077. Thank you for watching the Break It Down Brown Show.